You're just about to graduate high school. You're planning on attending a college. You're the #1 quarterback in the state. And in front of you is sitting the coach of the school of your dreams. And he's saying, I can give you a full ride scholarship, and I can give you this amount of pay. And he dazzles you with a big check and a money amount and a dollar sign. What would this process be called? This would be called college pay for play. College pay for play would have athletes who are going to schools be paid for playing their sports. Now, pay for play is unfair to many students in many respects. It would be unfair to students such as myself who go to school, are learning our trade, and yet we're not paid for our trade. We're not given money to learn how to be a psychologist. We're not given money to learn how to be an auto mechanic. We're not paid for any of that while we're there learning. And just like us, college athletes are considered unprofessional at their trade. They should not be paid for being unprofessional. They're there to learn more about their sport, whether it's basketball, the football, or hockey, or anything. College athletes should not be paid because they're considered unprofessional and they are not in the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, or any of that yet. It would be unfair for schools as well. There are big schools out there, such as USC, Florida, Alabama, and Penn State, who would receive a lot of money from whoever give them money for this process, which would probably be the taxpayers. So, me, the average student, would be paying for the college athletes to play for their sport. It would also be unfair for smaller schools because although they're smaller, they would not get as much money. Colleges such as Canisius, Wofford, and Drake University, who are although Division I schools, they're smaller sports programs, and therefore they would not receive as much money to pay these athletes, which means they would not be able to get as good of athletes, which means they would most likely be drowned out by the larger schools, which would probably mean they would have to cut funding to their athletic programs altogether because they're not able to pay for it. Bob Williams of the NCAA said, "There is a misperception that university athletic departments are profit machines that make millions of dollars a year." Well, in fact, in the past decade, only 6 universities consistently made a profit from athletics, while another 6 universities were profitable part of the time. Among schools that didn't profit from athletics, their athletic programs, the average loss was $7.8 million a year. This means they're not making money off of their athletics as it is. If they're to pay their athletes, they're making absolutely no money whatsoever. Which would mean lots of schools would have to get rid of their athletic programs altogether because they're not able to afford it. This pay for play would not only be unfair to students and schools, it would also be unfair to the athletes themselves. You have 3 categories of athletes. You have your big shot athletes, you have your average athletes, and you have your walk-on athletes. Your big shot athletes would have every single school coming after them and saying, "I'll give you this much." "Well, I'll give you this much." "No, I'll give you this much," to come to their school and play, on top of their full ride scholarships that they already receive. Your average athletes would have people say, "Well, if you come here, I'll give you this, and you can play for us." And then you'd have your poor walk-on students who would probably not have many people coming after them at all saying, "Well, we'll give you this much. We'll give you the least we can give you." It's unfair because you would have a system like the NFL and the NBA already in college, where you have your big shot athletes being paid the most and your average athletes not being paid as much. All in all, college is meant for learning. You are there to academically learn your trade. You are not professional at your trade. You should not be taught and paid at the same time. College athletes are already given massive scholarships to play their sport. It would be unfair to those who don't even barely get a scholarship, and yet they're learning their trade and are not paid at all for it. Schools would be constantly increasing their amount paid for every athlete. They would be fighting over who gets who, and they would be increasing the dollar amount, and it would get out of hand completely, and essentially a lot quicker than one would think. As athletes go to learn their respective sports, as others go to learn their respective trades, they should be considered unprofessional and remain unprofessional until they are drafted into their respective sports. There should be no money involved for college athletes until they are professional, just like everyone else.